here on Facebook and in Zoom. I am Todd Bookspan, the founder of Win by Noon. On behalf of Dave Savage and the entire staff at Mortgage Coach, welcome to the Tuesday interview call. And I am so excited today because I've got a really good friend. Some of you may have seen him in here before, but his name is Kevin Kauffman. Kevin is a real estate agent, entrepreneur, team leader, podcast host, Facebook group leader. He's got a lot going on. So without further ado, welcome, Kevin.
Hey, man, thanks a lot for having me. I'm super pumped to be here.
You know, it's always fun. So let me just give a quick backstory. So some of you know that I spent the last couple of years hanging out with a lot of entrepreneurs, and Kevin is one of those entrepreneurs. I actually had met Kevin back when I was doing loans, but we really didn't hang out back then. We started hanging out when we were doing the entrepreneur thing. And so he and I typically try to meet up at least once a month for coffee, and we haven't done so this month. So this is kind of like our coffee meeting, but you're all here as part of it. So make sure you're asking questions in Zoom and on Facebook, because ultimately I'll kind of set it up. You've got Next Level Agents Facebook group, which has how many realtors in there now?
We've got about 25,000 or so realtors now.
All right. So just a few realtors in that group. You guys host a big event, Next Level Live, which we'll talk about in a little bit.
Yeah. So we host an event called the NLA Live, which I'm super pumped about because that's right around the corner. Host a podcast because I love to be able to do this, but with me getting to be the one to ask the questions and pick the brains of some of the top producing people, not just realtors, but, you know, folks like yourself, Todd, you've been a guest. Dave and I just had our schedules haven't synced up yet, though we've certainly attempted many times to other people, you know, sometimes executives in the real estate world, sometimes people in the tech space that are in and around real estate, sometimes just people that are great marketing minds, like a couple good friends of ours. Dean Jackson has been on, and Roland Frazier. Both those guys we met through the Genius Network as well. So just trying to provide value and learn from the people that are the best at their craft.
Love it. Love it. And so just to frame it, your real estate team, Group 4610, you guys are at eXp Realty, and you guys are in how many states, and kind of what's volume look like this year?
Yeah, you know, we're operating a total of 5 states across 6 cities. So Phoenix is home base for us. That is the majority of our business and our hub, if you will. It's where I sit today. We also sell real estate in Tucson, Arizona, as well as San Luis Obispo, California, Denver, Colorado, Nashville, Tennessee, and Dallas, Texas is a total place for us. We probably looking at about 100 million this year. That's our goal, which should take us about 300 to 350 transactions, give or take. Probably closer to the 300 would be my guess for this year. So really excited about where real estate's going. And I'm one of those weirdos that's actually more excited than scared about all of the change and disruption in our industry. I think it's something you and I talk a lot about, these iBuyers just being here in our home in the Phoenix area.
Well, and I think it's really, really critical. And that's really one of the reasons that I wanted to have you on, is I think that as loan officers, we all need to be super knowledgeable about what's going on in the real estate world, right? We have to be able to add value to agents. And, you know, one of the things that this group is always looking for is how do we actually get agents to want to work with us? And, you know, what does that look like? And I was hoping that you would really share a little bit about advice to people who are looking to attract new real estate agent relationships. And then also let's lead into sort of some of the knowledge and stuff that you're going out and speaking around the country on with regards to iBuyers and what's happening in the market, because I think that would be really valuable information for them to be able to share.
Yeah, you know, it's funny. I had the opportunity about a week and a half ago to follow someone who you know, and I'm sure everybody on this call knows, Barry Habib, at an event and talk about this exact topic with, I don't know, there's a couple hundred different LOs in the room. And obviously it's really hard to follow Barry. But one of the questions that came up about was this specifically, like, how do we get more agents like yourself that want to work with us? And you know what kept coming back to me at that moment, so I'm gonna share it with you today, is the fact of not to be discouraged or go away when you're told no the first 10 times. I feel like as an LO or anybody else, even the title relationships that I have or any of the other businesses I have, most people, of all the times I've ever been called on by anybody, I normally can give like one no and I never hear from them again, and that's great. Or 2 no's and I never hear from them again, and that's great too, because it just tells me they're not my people. I think about like the agents in my business, in my organization, who are, looking to build their real estate business within our team and within our structure. The ones that survive are the ones that understand long-term follow-up. They understand that the consumer's timeline isn't their timeline and vice versa, and that we're working on the consumer's timeline, not getting them on our timeline. And so as an LO or anybody who calls on realtors ever, when you look at the things that you want to do, one of them to me is like, just don't give up. There's actually a lot to be said in this industry for just surviving, because what I've noticed is the amount of fallout in our industry. It's actually really easy to kind of get to know what seems like everybody, because truthfully, there's not that many of us that survive past even 3 years, much less 5, 10, or 15. So a lot of it could be just attributed to survival of the fittest and being able to stick around for a long period of time. And most importantly, not going away and not taking no for an answer just because you heard no once or twice, but actually pushing back through and trying to find ways to provide value.
All right. So, and I totally agree, right? I think most people just give up once. They get all hurt because someone said, no, hey, I don't want to actually get together for that cup of coffee. You talk about providing value. So, what are any ideas or some examples of what someone could do to provide value?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that. A good buddy of mine he's like a marketing, he's a marketing guy. He's not in the real estate world. But he made a post one day that made me think about exactly that, because we hear the word value. Like one of my least favorite questions I've ever heard from anybody is, how can I provide value to you? Because I know that's going to be followed up with an ask, right? So I never want to hear that. Like, how can I provide value? When I think of providing value, I always think of like, how can I pay attention to the needs of this person, to what maybe something they shared with me over the course of a conversation, maybe something I read about online. What's something I could do that would maybe stand out and provide value? So reason I brought up my buddy Luke is he wanted to buy a domain name from somebody who he didn't know. It was a very great domain, and sent a letter to the person who owned it. And before he sent her a letter asking, and it was a very well-written letter, the guy's a copywriter. He understands copywriting, so he could tell a story. But most importantly, what he did is he went and researched who owned it, and literally looked at her Facebook, looked at all of her social media profiles, sent her a $100 gift card to REI. This is not to say we should be going out and giving out gift cards, but he could see that she was into like hiking and outdoor stuff. And so REI was an obvious thing. So he sent her the letter. And at the very bottom, P.S., by the way, whether you decide to sell me the URL or not, the REI gift card is yours to keep. I can tell you love being outdoors. And so, whatever, like however he wrote. To me, that was a great example. It probably, I don't know if it took him 5 minutes or an hour to research what was important to her and kind of what he thought would be a key thing for her. But the point to me is that he paid attention to what she was putting out there. And you can do that with someone, whether you're interacting with them in person or you just know them kind of virtually, or even just stalk them virtually in that case, like he did in that case. So I think value is different for everyone, right? So some agents, it's about, can you make certain introductions? Can you help them hire people, introduce them to people who might be looking for opportunities? Maybe it's to help them recruit to their team. I think it's going to be different for everyone, and you're not going to know that answer until you start to build a relationship, or really at a minimum, bare bone minimum, really start to pay attention to what their needs are and what it is that they're looking for, because there's not this one size fits all sort of provide value template out there.
I think that's so true. And I think when people think value, there's, everyone's got a different definition of it, but obviously the whole idea of figuring out what's personalized, really helps. Any other examples of anything that maybe someone's done or given to you to try to get to know you and add value to you?
Yeah. I mean, I've had people go so far as to just kind of show up where I show up. Not to say that that's always the way to do it, but it's like that old saying, it's probably Zig Ziglar or someone like that said, it's like, if you want to be interesting, be interested, right? And so getting interested in what people are. So if you've got, say, like high value targets that you're going after, maybe you've got your dream 100 list, so to speak, of partners on the real estate side, figuring out what is it they do, where do they hang out, what's important to them. Do they go to a CrossFit gym, right? Because if they go to a CrossFit gym, they're probably a little fanatical about that. So maybe literally joining a gym where they go. If they really like coffee, maybe it's that. Maybe if they I think it's, for me, it's been a combination of things, and just always looking. I can remember one specific partner that I have, right when we were having kids, right when we started having our first child, gave me a great book on how kids learn. And it was literally, I think it was called How Children Learn, something like that. And so it wasn't like, hey, go be a parent like this type of book. It was like, hey, I read this really helped me and my kids. And, so I thought I'd share this with you. It could be something simple like that. But most importantly, I'll go back, and not to be too repetitive, is understanding that's only one touch. If there's one thing I've learned about recruiting, and I think recruiting is all the same, whether we're talking about me recruiting agents to join my team or my brokerage, or if I was an LO trying to recruit agents to send me deals, one touch isn't going to do it. What I've learned through recruiting is it takes something like 14 or 15 exchanges of value. And the problem with that is that the perception of value needs to be in the eye of the other person, not you. And so that's why it's so important to pay attention. So giving somebody one book that's impactful might be great. And that could be an item of value to them. It could be an exchange of value where they came out on the plus side. If you think of it like a bank account, right? Like that was a deposit, not a withdrawal. Like we've got to get to a certain point of where the deposits have built up. I always look at it from recruiting to my team or to my brokerage as one or two things going to happen. They're either going to see that they get so much more value from me that they're silly for not being here and they're going to join me, or they're going to, at one point, I'll just be in second place for however long I got to be in second place. And when they get mad at their current broker, because they will, then I'm going to be the first person that they call. I know that that's why people move. And so when those two things happen, first of all, if I'm just providing more value, you're probably done more than 13 or 14 touches or 15 touches or exchanges of value. But when they get mad at their broker, if I've done enough to be position number 2 and provided value, I know that I get the first shot. And that's all I'm looking to do. And I think that's, if I had to, give up my real estate business today and start an LO business tomorrow or title or anything like that, that's exactly how I would operate.
No, I just so love that. And I think joining a gym to go work out with you would be a little bit creepy to try to get to know you. Other than that, I love the whole idea of the book. And, I've successfully done that over time. And I would probably sadly admit that I sent the book, and if the person blew me off, I really didn't follow up. But, we've all heard here in this group, Tim Brahim talk about when he was a new loan officer, it took him, I think, a year and a half of calling literally every week, every couple of weeks to the woman who ended up becoming his number one referral source for the rest of his career, because he was consistent. And then at the time where, just like Kevin said, her number one made a mistake or was on vacation, boom, he was there because he made that call. How do you get someone psychologically, so they send the book or they send whatever that thing is? Should they, would you recommend they do it every month? Would you recommend they call every week or every 2 weeks? I mean, what's enough and what's too much to show that you really want their business over that long span?
To me, this is kind of no different than like the way I would teach my agents lead follow-up. It's kind of part science, part art, right? So there's not a, hey, do it, and then 4 weeks later do this, and then 4 weeks later do that. Now, some people can operate that way, and they'll get results if they just stay consistent enough, right, over a long period of time. If you don't have that, if you don't have 5 years to build your business, you need to build it sooner. Say you have a 1 year worth of runway or whatever that looks like. I think you've got to bring in there's an art to it, right? There's an art to understanding how impactful this was and knowing, should I make a follow-up? Like if I sent you something, as an example, a book, like it's probably appropriate for me to if I haven't heard from you, to follow up in a week to go, hey, I just want to make sure, hey, I sent you a book. Do did it arrive yet? If so, let me know what you think. I'd love to get together whenever you're done with it and compare notes. It made a real big impact for me, on these 2 or 3 areas, something like that, right? So that could be 2 touches in the matter of 7 days. or it could be you wait a little bit longer if it's a different touch, right? If you bumped into them somewhere, you just met them for the first time, that first follow-up might just be a couple of days later to solidify that. And then it might be a week at a time for a few weeks. It's hard to say there's any one way I would do that. I'm sure I would get into a certain groove, if you will, if I was approaching it as an LO versus approaching it from where I sit today. But I think it's important to know there's got to be some sort of structure. Like, I'm going to touch them at least certain number of times a year. And there's got to be some thinking involved. I hate to say this because it just doesn't scale. Although I think it's the only way to scale, which is we've really got to treat everyone like individuals, especially when you're talking about like your kind of higher value targets for your business, the people that can send you multiple deals a month, not just, a deal here or there, or, a deal a quarter or 2 deals a quarter, but someone who could probably send you 2 or 3 or 4 a month or whatever that number looks like.
So obviously you're a hot target here in the Phoenix market. Are you seeing anyone who's ever prospected you for a significant amount of time or not really? They give up too soon?
I had one person, I had one person who, while I was still very happy in the current relationship I have, had prospected me for years, like consistently for years. And what was really funny is I sat down with this person because I got to a point in my business where I understood that hiring was the most important thing I could do for my business. And so I just went to everybody who I was already doing business with or who wanted to do business with and just said, hey, here's the ways here's the way to get a shot. Like, I can't send you one more loan, or I can't send you the first loan until XYZ happens. And what's funny is once I put it on him and explained to him the way it could work, like, he went away. And he had been so good about following up. Like, he really stood out because he had followed up for so long. I found it to be so odd. But no, most people will send an email or two. They might say hi at an event. And then, I think the part of the thing is, which is kind of weird, is number one, people give up too easy. But number two, they're actually looking at it through their own eyes. Like, how can I get Kevin's business, as opposed to how could I do something for Kevin and maybe form a real relationship with him. And then if something happens out of it, something happens out of it, right? If we're able to do business together, great. And I think most people just sort of stop short. Like, they have the one interaction. Like, if I meet you at an event, like, I'm not going to send you a deal tomorrow. So don't treat it so transactional that way. And that's been, unfortunately, my experience with most lenders, really all vendors. Doesn't matter if we're talking about people I do business with for lending or for title, you name it. It's kind of like, it's weird. It's like most people don't really believe in building relationships.
It's so funny, and I just view you as such a relationship guy. I have to tell you guys that Kevin actually sends me like handwritten notes, and he's a super marketer. So I definitely would encourage you guys to be following him online. You mentioned adding value. I think information is a great way to add value. And so, like, one of the things that I love when we get together is you're telling me what's going on with your agent recruiting, and you're telling me what's going on with iBuyers in the marketplace. And so one of the things I wanted you to come on was talk real quick just about the Next Level Agents live event, because I've been to the event before. I hosted a mastermind beforehand. So I'd love if maybe we can get some of you mortgage coach folks to show up. I would do a mastermind ahead of it. But I'm going to throw the link in the feed. Can you just tell everyone kind of what that is and why they should maybe go?
Yeah. So first of all, Next Level Agents Live came from the group Next Level Agents, right? And so I think it's important to explain why that group existed. That group existed. I started it because I felt like there was a need for a better conversation online. There's other bigger real estate groups out there that are kind of mastermind-ish, if you will, that I just didn't jive with. They didn't feel good to me for some reason. And so this was a desire to put out great content, have conversations with higher level thinkers, people that are also running teams, not exclusively for teams, but just people who think at a different level than the other 90% or so of the business. So that's where the group started, with no real sort of North Star other than that. And then eventually we said, hey, maybe we should put together an event because, and truthfully, we had two goals for the first event a few years ago, which was, number one, don't lose money. And number two was, this would probably bring our members closer together. We got a pretty good tight-knit community, so this would be cool to see what that does to the group. Well, it was a great hit. And what I realized is we put on a really good event because there's no brand being sold. It's a brand agnostic, brand safe place. It's not a pitch fest, right? So when you came to the event, number one, it was heavy content, actionable content. And so that's a given for what we do. The second thing was, it was a safe place. So whether you're a RE/MAX agent, a KW agent, EXP agent, or independent, does not matter. This is a safe place, and we feature speakers from all of those. And I came from KW, where they put on amazing events at Mega Agent Camp and Family Reunion. They're amazingly orchestrated. Towards the last few years I was there, and probably even earlier, I just didn't realize it. Everything was all about selling more of KW, right? Selling their coaching, selling their products, Keller Mortgage as an example, things like that. Whereas, so they put on a great event, but it all had a pitch to it. It all had a slant to it that was about the company, which I understand, but it makes it so other companies, other agents don't want to be there. And I'd go to other events. I love the Inman Connect events. I really do. But I don't go there for the content for agents. I go there for the networking opportunities and to kind of see what's going on with technology. And so I found these two areas, like it's either all about the one company, or it's not enough rich content that we as agents and even lenders can use for our business. So the goal was like, let's put together some really great content. Let's put together the smartest minds in the industry to share openly, because that is how we do it. And let's see what happens. And so far, good stuff has happened. And that's kind of the aim of our event, is to provide really good value. And, on a similar off topic, but somewhat related, I was talking to a buddy of mine this morning who is going to be one of our speakers this year and was last year. He's truthfully, he's kind of a success coach and strategist and speaker. And he was going to talk to a group here. He lives here locally in Phoenix. He was going to talk to one of the larger title companies and some of their executives today. And we were just talking about that. And I was thinking, with what he does, if I was somebody in that room who had agent relationships, I would be taking those people to his events or taking those people into his opportunities to learn from him, because that's a way to provide value and even build a bond. So if nothing else, I'd love to have Mortgage Coach members there, because I think you'll get a lot out of it. We had a lot of non-realtors there last year who showed up to bought a ticket and could not say enough good things about the content, because it wasn't just straight agent, all about selling houses. It was about growth and moving forward. And so that could be an opportunity as well to grab your top client, or grab somebody who you'd like to be your top client, bring them with you, buy their ticket, and go do the event together and make it a bonding event. Todd, I think of the time when you and I sat down and had breakfast at Genius Network, when we realized the other person was there. We ended up talking about the whole previous day, and that gave us a lot to kind of build on from that point forward.
Yeah, I totally look at that. It was like a life changer for me, just because some of the stuff that you shared is stuff that I've implemented for me and my family. And, so grateful for that piece. And I totally agree with you. I mean, there's no better opportunity, I think, to get side by side and learn the craft. And even if you went by yourself, you'll meet other agents, probably not that you'll do business with because they're out of state, but I think it's the knowledge you're going to get, because you guys have Facebook, lead gen folks, you've got coaches, you've got all sorts of people there, right? I mean, there's just you couldn't not learn something when you go.
Yeah, I mean, even if you just went with I'll call it your hat as an LO, right? Even if you just put that hat on, you're going to go. We're going to have people talk about marketing at a higher level, marketing to their database. Somebody who doesn't spend a dime on advertising, an agent who, while she's an agent, closes 125 to 150 deals a year with no team, and she does it without spending money on internet leads. She's really clear on who her ideal client is and what that messaging is to that person. So yeah, we've got a bunch of different topics. We're going to, I haven't rolled this out yet, we're going to have a session that's kind of like, I'm going to call it like Power Women, if you will, like with some really amazing ladies that I know that are balancing being a wife, being a mom, being, running a business, running a real estate business, running kids to and from practices, all that stuff that goes into being a mom that, quite frankly, the females know how to do. And for some reason, us guys we can barely figure out how to run our business, much less do all of it and still have time left over. So I figure we can all learn something from them. So we're going to have a wide array. It's going to be focused on, though, surviving and thriving in the disruption, because I do think that as these companies, Zillow, Open Door, OfferPad, et cetera, continue to grow and build market share, it's going to disrupt a lot of people. There's going to be fewer agents. There's probably going to be fewer folks in your industry as well, if we looked up 5 years from now. And so it's important to not just be scared of these companies and talk bad about them, or just put our head in the sand and pretend they don't exist. It's important to find out what are the strategies that are working right now and can move us forward as well in the future to make sure that we're still standing.
I love that. All right. So I threw down in the Facebook Live the link for NLA Live. It's just nlalive.com for those of you in Zoom, since I can't multitask. Is that the best place to send them, Kevin?
Not on Facebook, because Facebook, so for whatever reason, does not like that URL. Although that NLA Live does work, so does NLALive2020.com. That works, and Facebook doesn't reject that for whatever reason. They go to the exact same place. So NLALive2020.com. The NLA Live works as well. That'll take it right to the page that's got information on the event, as well as some video clips from last year, things like that, and of course the opportunity to register.
Perfect. And then can you resend that in Zoom, Kevin? Because you just sent it just to the panelists. If you could send it to the crew. All right. So I have to ask, because there's a lot of discussion about the wealth chart on the wall behind you. And since I interviewed Josh Metal from your office in, I guess, October, I know what that is. You okay sharing what it is back there?
Yeah, I don't mind. So it's funny, the way I've started describing this to people is it's part scoreboard, part vision board, first of all. So, and I'm actually staring. So that's my business partner's wealth chart right there. Mine is like 2 feet in front of my face right now. So we stare at it all day long. That specific thing is in regards to, and you guys could probably connect to this really. This is in regards to our EXP, our EXP business. So, it's in regards to the number of agents that we've recruited over, both directly and indirectly, into our groups at eXp Realty. So the top part has got like the people that have named us directly. That's top left side. Below that are people that are maybe in, but they don't qualify, meaning they don't sell enough real estate. Below that is like markers for year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, and year 5 totals, meaning how many total people are in our group. And then that's below that is broken out by agent, as well as just to the right of that, if you can see it right there where it looks like that, that's pointing to what's called their freedom numbers. So it's got a revenue number as well as a agent count number, if you will. And then the rest of it is kind of like hit list, people that you're talking to, working on actively. And this is something we update on the 1st of each month.
I just love it. And I know people are asking. So I would just tell you guys, I'm secretly working on this win by noon scoreboard. So now I'm going to have to make it a wealth chart like what he's got. But if anyone's interested, I would love some feedback on this. Just ping me. I would send you a copy of it. It's goal driven, but maybe what we could do is add on a piece just like he's got on there for, number of agents and target, and put down who your agents are and what they're sending you. Maybe we could do something fun here in this community. So just ping me here on Facebook's probably fine, or just Todd at winbynoon.com, but would love to get your feedback on it. It's something that the community's asked me for, and it's just sitting here ready now finally for some feedback. So thank you for sharing that. That was definitely a hot topic. Someone else is asking, did Luke get his domain when he sent the REI card?
He did, and it only cost him $2,500. And to the other part of that story is the lady had owned that domain for years, wasn't doing anything with it, and had turned down higher offers. But she liked Luke's message, and I'm sure the gift card didn't hurt.
That's, again, I think that's so critical, like just to take the time to learn, right? So if you guys just joined us, go back to the beginning of this and hear Kevin's conversation around, really thinking more specifically around the people that you're going after and helping come up with ideas that will make them smile. Is that a good way of putting it?
Yeah. I took that, I screenshotted that, right? I saw it. I was like, oh my goodness, like that right there that's an example of value. So I took it and I went and posted it inside of our Facebook group, Next Level Agents. And I mean, it started a decent conversation because the thought of value, it's such an overused word. So I always even hesitate to use it myself, yet it's something that it really requires more thought. It's not just this 1 + 1 = 2 type of equation.
Yeah, it's interesting too, because, again, as we talk about value, I guess I'd like to throw out a couple of things here and kind of stay tuned, folks. I'm definitely at the end going to have Kevin talk a little bit more about iBuyers for those of you who are in markets where those are coming in. But one of the things that you've also done this year is you've doubled down on database. So do you mind sharing what it is that you guys are doing and maybe encourage loan officers here to do the same and to help their real estate agents do the same? Because I think that's how you battle the iBuyers, is by building better relationships.
I believe so too. Like I'm 100% of the mindset that I can't win the bet. Heck, all of us, everybody who's listening to this live or recorded could probably take our income for the next 12 months, pool it together, and we might have enough money to compete for a month or two when it comes to the advertising space or the lead gen space against some of these companies. And so I've decided I'm not playing that game. I'm not saying I don't do any sort of internet leads, because I also want to be really clear. I've always been a card-carrying member of the Internet Lead Club, right? That's how I was able to expand my business so quickly as we started to move outside of just Phoenix. But what I've come to very firmly believe is that I've got to make sure that everybody whose contact information I already have and everybody in my database, everybody in my sphere of influence is absolutely positively knows that I'm the person that they call first and foremost. And it's such a basic tenet in our business that I think it was easy to overlook because it was so easy to pick up deals with internet, et cetera. So I truly believe like that's the hack. That's how we beat these companies. Like Zillow is going to outspend me for sure every month from now until the end of time. But what they can't do is they can't out relationship me. And so I've just done I've made an effort. I don't even want to call it a good job yet. I think we've probably done okay, but I've just made an effort to go, okay, what am I really doing for my sphere of influence, and how frequently am I contacting them? And more importantly, like, what are the ways I'm contacting them? So it started about 7 months ago when I did what I called filing bankruptcy on my sphere of influence, which meant I just decided I wasn't going to use the list that was in my CRM anymore. I was going to start over, and I grabbed a blank spreadsheet, grabbed my phone, grabbed my Facebook friend list, and I just started typing. And I went, how would I attack this in a manner that I could reach these people more often than I'm reaching them, have it be automated, or at least take little of my time except for the personal touches. Well, first it was like, how do I do the automated things, right? And so I knew that I wanted to go the route of direct mail, but I didn't want to just send your typical postcard, if you will. So I thought about that. I ended up working with someone, Dean Jackson, on the direct mail stuff. As you know, I like handwritten notes. I just like sending handwritten notes. I like getting handwritten notes. So direct mail. And then what were some automated things I could do? I've used video in my business since 2009, literally. So what could I do for business? Or what could I use video-wise? That was where viral marketing came in for me. And then HomeBot, which is like the coolest thing I think I've ever seen in terms of monthly updating, staying in touch with the sphere of influence and past clients. So I kind of did those to turn on the automated stuff, to then go, okay, that was sort of levels 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then we kind of took it a further deeper level with, okay, what do the personal touches look like? The personal, amount of time that we're spending with people, and, our A's, B's, and C's type of scenario, or client appreciation events, things like that.
So you went from a big list, you cut it down. Like, how big is that list now?
Mine's probably about 110. Fred's probably closer to 140, 150. Um, and that is just because I didn't want to just spray everything on everyone. Like I wanted to make sure we had, now there's a bigger list that gets, say, like our viral marketing, and there's a bigger list that gets our HomeBot, but like the direct mail, the handwritten notes, like that's a smaller list that will continue to grow. Don't get me wrong, but started with just a big mess. I mean, we weren't doing those things though. Like we weren't signed up for HomeBot. We weren't sending direct mail. I was sending handwritten notes to the people I could think of, right, who I knew were my kind of top 50, if you will, people who I wanted to have a closer relationship with, things like that. I could do that, but we just got really strategic about it. And at the same time, we're still running our internet lead gen strategy, which works very well for us. But I also know that that's not going to be true forever. So I'm trying to take as much of that as we can and continue to move that forward, but also just get real deep with the people that we already have.
Well, so here's it. That's perfect, Kevin. So I wanted you guys to hear that because you all need to do the same thing, right? Most of us in the mortgage business have done a terrible job at this. And you can start over. Who are the people that you know? Kevin doesn't have a huge list, right? He talked about his business partner, Fred. He doesn't have a huge list either. You don't need a huge list, but you need to start. You need to start now. They're super easy things. I'll throw the HomeBot discount code into the Facebook stream for those of you who haven't gotten it yet. I told Kevin a long time ago that he should get it, and then it just took him a while because he was stubborn or something. I don't know.
I'm kind of slow.
What it was.
Let's face it. I'm slow.
That's okay. I only gave him a few pieces of wisdom last year, and that's the one he apparently he dragged his feet on. But I love that. And so I think about that, right? You heard him say earlier, he said art and science. You have to use a little bit of both. And so, the science is the automated stuff. There's a lot of that out there that you guys can do, but is it valuable? And then the art are the other small personal touches that you can throw in there. And I think it's really critical. I think you've got your A+ clients and you market to them one way, and then you've got everybody else who you market to a different way. And, I think it's just the way to go. And you've been out there teaching this all over the country, and it seems to be having an impact on your business.
Yeah, there's no doubt it's having an impact on our business. I'm really fortunate in our business from a standpoint of, number one, we've been building it now it'll be 12 years next week that Fred and I started working together. So we've got a really good foundation, and I say this not to be flippant or anything like that, but I probably spend anywhere from 2 to 4 hours a week in my business, and it's usually closer to 2. And what I've done though is I've set things up and built it over time. It's not like I just arrived and there was a business that can sell hundreds of houses a year where I'm only in it for 2 hours. That's not the case. I'm probably in it for 2 to 3 hours, maybe 4 on a big week, and then Fred's in it for probably 3 to 5 hours a week at this point. The rest is kind of focused on some of our other ventures that we've got in the works or already working on. And what I learned is I could do that and set it up such a way that this is a lot of fun. Number one, it's a lot of fun. Number two, it's very, it's insulated. Like if Zillow and Open Doors double their marketing spend tomorrow, I truthfully don't believe it might change 10%. I might lose 10% of my transactions because those are the internet leads that we're losing out on. We're not going to lose anybody from our database or our old leads that we've really been branding and staying in front of, and continuing to try to get closer with those folks as well. So I believe that this is a business that we can continue to run for as long as we choose to run it, and it doesn't have to be somewhere where we're in it. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with being in your business for 40 or 50 hours a week. I would do it if that's still what I was most passionate about. I happen to be not. I really enjoy running the Next Level Agents Facebook group and the podcast and a few of the other things that we have going on outside of that. So that's just where I spend the bulk of my time now.
Well, I love that, but it's something that's actionable for all of you. I would love, I think from a sharing knowledge, I think most of you haven't had your head in the sand. You know who Open Door is, and you know what OfferPad is, and you know that Zillow now has Zillow offers. But can you real quick just jump into the iBuyer piece? Because I think that's some way that you guys can add value to your agents especially as they start showing up in your markets if they haven't already.
Yeah, no worries. So I don't think, hopefully, I don't think we really have to describe what an iBuyer is, right? Can skip past, or can we skip past that part, or do you want to start with like literally what is an iBuyer and kind of what are they doing?
Well, let's just use the simple part. Zillow in Arizona and now like 15 markets, right, is buying houses for cash and selling them, right? So they're beating realtors to their clients by putting that below the Zestimate. So I'll throw it out there as that, I mean, just as a brief example,
Yeah.
and that's what these other guys are doing too.
Yeah, these companies are buying directly from the homeowner. They're kind of tech companies, if you will. They're using data and technology, and they're buying like, to give you an example, typical month in the Phoenix market is they're now taking about 1,000 to 1,500 deals a month out of our market. I mean, maybe 1,500 might be a little bit high, but I've definitely seen multiple months now in the last 3 or 4 where the amount of homes that they bought and the amount of homes that they sold was north of 1,000. So it's a big number, right? So these companies are going direct to consumer, and I think the most important thing I try to get folks to understand, Todd, and it's mostly other agents that I'm talking to about this, is that first of all, these companies exist because that the consumers were clearly not being served on some level. There was a demand there for it, right? So there's a demand for something that we as traditional real estate agents were not providing, and we need to just accept that. This isn't about big bad Zillow or big bad Open Door or Silicon Valley coming and trying to just wipe poor little realtors out. I don't believe that's the case. I believe it's a matter of there's a market there because we let there be a market by not providing the right value. Where I get a little worried in talking to real estate agents, and we've gone so far as we've dedicated 2 of our 5 podcasts a week to iBuyer education in a little segment we call iMinute on our podcast, is agents tend to fall in, and so do, quite frankly, so do most LOs. They tend to fall into one of 2 camps: buried, head in the sand. This is never going to happen. It doesn't matter because they're not coming to my market. They're just going to lose money and eventually they'll go out of business. Or it's the complete, it's the end of the world. I really don't think either one of those things are true. They are coming. They've already proven their model. They literally bought and sold over 12,000 houses in the Phoenix market last year. So like the model's proven. 12,000 in Phoenix alone. Think about that for a minute. 12,000 transactions. That's a lot in their 5th year for Open Door and OfferPad, and really the first full year for Zillow Offers. So they're not going away. I think the other big mistake I see both realtors and lenders do this. They show this like side-by-side comparison. And I understand why we do that, because on a one-off basis, there are scenarios where it's like the homeowner probably gave up 35, 40 grand compared to what we could have got them on the open market. But you got to understand that's 1 out of like 1,000 this month. So there's always, like, agents do that to homeowners every day. Wholesalers, who a lot of them have licenses, do that to homeowners every single day. So to characterize these companies as bad for doing that, I think is wrong. And number one, most importantly, it's inaccurate. Can that happen? Yes. But I can tell you right now, we probably have done 3 or 4 deals with these companies in the last 30 to 40 days because it was a better option for our sellers. And in one case, I'll give you one example. We were actually still able to collect a 3% commission on something that would have been a listing for us. The homeowner ended up with like $1,500 less than what we thought we could have got them best case scenario in the MLS. But they didn't have to wait a couple months. They got the money right now, and we ended up like that was the best route for them. So in a lot of cases, especially here in Phoenix, where they have more data, they've gotten more accurate, they are offering closer and closer to actual value, closer to actual retail market value for homes. Not to say they're always going to offer 100%, but we got to understand, for every case where they pay too little and someone could say they got ripped off, there's a case where they paid too much, right? That's happening. And I think we got to understand that and be sure not to generalize these companies as all good or all bad. They're just an option for the homeowner, for the consumer. And I think that's what's important.
Well, and I think that's key, that it's educating your consumer, just like you're going to educate them on the loan side, you're encouraging agents to educate them on the real estate side.
Yes, absolutely. We've got to do that. We have to. So it's changed the way we do listing appointments. Another, not to go backwards, but to do that a little bit. One of the other big complaints I hear about these companies is, hey, they offered me X, but then they just renegotiated after they inspected. And yes, that can happen, but here's why. It's because when a home, and stop me if you've ever heard this before, but like, well, I've got the nicest house on the block. That's why I should get 450 instead of 425, right? I have the nicest countertops and I have the nicest pool and all that stuff, right? So you got to understand, when consumers go straight to these companies, they are selling the house through their eyes, not through the eyes of, say, like a home inspector or a real estate professional would understand the true value is and what those countertops do, what the condition of that roof does for the value of the home or the potential purchase price. So I say that to say that's changed the way we do listing appointments. We really look at it as like 2 steps now. We want to go out there, have our appointment. We want to go out there, grab as many pictures as we can, because we want to, when we come to sit down for the listing appointment, already have offers ready to go for them, or at least the scenarios of what that money can look like, as well as the retail market scenario, right? And then let them choose. This is not our decision to make. We are there to guide them. We are not there to tell them what's best. And in some cases, taking 5 or 10 grand less and not dealing with the hassle of people walking through the home or waiting 30 to 45 days or waiting for contingencies to clear, sometimes that is the better route for somebody. And it's not up to us, it's up to the consumer. And I think the sooner we realize that as professionals, the better off we're all going to be.
I love it. So you guys just you and Kevin did an ebook on it. Are you cool if I give it away to this group?
Yeah, absolutely. We're not charging for that. That's just, we want to get more education out there. There's no sale at the end of it. Nothing. We just wanted to write an ebook to get more content out there for agents, LOs, everybody in the industry. I've had a couple title execs reach out to me to get a copy of it to share with some of the agents they mastermind with, because we want it to get out there.
All right, so I'm typing in there now. So share it with your agents. Plus, I think you should know these things, right? I mean, my whole goal today with Kevin was you guys to hear someone who's at a super high level and have some takeaways that you can share with your partners and your prospective partners, right? It's this whole idea of adding value. As far as things that an LO should, like, I don't want to go as an LO and sit down with a real estate agent and tell them, like, I'm an iBuyer expert, but what are the top couple of recommendations they can make without coming off as a jerk?
Well, I think you could look for things like maybe it's just items of value. Maybe the book can be an item of value. Maybe a course like iReal Estate Pro, which I don't get any money if you buy iReal Estate Pro. It's not mine. A buddy of mine runs it, but I happen to think it's really good content. You know those guys, Todd. Or it's a matter of sitting down. If you see someone who is talking about iBuyers, especially on their Facebook page or their Instagram, somewhere on their social media, their marketing, and you go, maybe that's not accurate. Like, maybe it's worth sitting down with them and just finding out why they feel that way. And then it's like, I think we just have to slow down to hear more from people so we can look for opportunities to provide that value. It could be giving them the link to download this book free. It could be sending them to a class. It could be going, yeah, you know what, but I heard about this. Maybe it's about sharing experiences. So I think that it could be all of those things to be able to provide value to someone, to be able to get convey value in regards to the iBuyer conversation or digital disruption conversation.
Love it. So I just threw it into the chat in Zoom for you guys, but it's kevinandfred.com/iBuyer. My first one, I accidentally left. Whoops, I turned off my video too.
Oh, yeah, turn off
accidentally
your video.
left that out. So I'm trying to run Facebook down here on my laptop and Zoom up here on my iPhone. It's a little crazy. So, all right, so we've got Kevin for another 10 minutes or so. If you guys have questions, throw them into chat or throw them into Facebook, because I would love for you guys to, learn as much as possible. you mentioned art and science of follow-up. So let's talk lead follow-up for a minute. How are you coaching your agents on that art and science piece? I know some will be a little bit of overlap from what we talked about before, but I think that loan officers could use a little tutoring and brush up on how to follow up with our leads better too.
So I think one of the things that we realized we had to do for our agents was knowing that some people are going to have a hard time with that anyways. So we came up with like 10 different items of value. It's basically an excuse to call somebody, right? So if you're in LO and you're thinking about like, what could I do that would be a little more science, right? What are the 10 topics I could use over a period of time, call it a year, 6 months, whatever that time frame looks like, to actually use as an item of value? You could start there with that. But then it's about having real conversation. None of it matters without a real conversation. And so when I have a conversation with a lead, and what I teach our agents to do when they have a conversation with a consumer, is to really listen in for cues, what's important to them, and take notes on it. Because the worst thing I could do is have a conversation with you as a consumer or a potential consumer. Maybe I find out why it is you need to buy a home in Scottsdale, and then forget about it the next time I talk to you. Maybe you're 6 months out and I don't talk to you for another 30 or 45 days, and I have to ask you again, or I don't know your motivation, right? And I know that's real simple stuff, but it's like some of us who are maybe good at sales, we know to ask about motivation and find that, but then we don't think to systematize that and write it down because we're so busy just moving, right? And the problem is if you're doing your job, you're talking to lots of people every day. And in your cases, you guys are talking to consumers and realtors. And so it's so easy to kind of get lost and mixed up and be like, oh, was it Todd that said this? Or did Dave say that? Right. And so in my CRM, I am making detailed notes. It might not look like detailed notes, but it's detailed notes. Needs to sell, wants to buy in Scottsdale, closer to family. Brother has XYZ condition, kids need to be in this school, whatever that case is, right? So that way, in a blink, next time I call that person or they call me, I can look it up and I've got my talking points. I know the things we've talked about. I know what's important to you, whether it's motivation or just something in general. Like, is going on vacation to Disneyland with the kids for the first time. Hey, well, if I'm smart and I actually want to make an impression, the next time I follow up with them might be right after Disneyland, just to find out how it was, how the kids enjoyed it, and did they want to kill Mickey when it was over? Whatever the case is. So it can be about very specific things that are transactional in nature, like motivation, etc. But if we're doing a good job at building relationships, it's going to be about so much more than that. And I think using our CRMs are usually the most underutilized things in our business.
Well, and we talk about that here in this community all the time, right? I think that's like, think about that. It's the same thing that you guys should be doing as loan officers. He's coaching his team to do as real estate agents. And that's just, remember, our brains aren't quite as good as we think they are. And that I always find, oh, look at that. Kevin's holding up his win by noon behind the scenes. That's very nice of you, Kevin.
But no, here's why though. Here's what I love. Here's why I use win by noon and I don't use other planners. I do use my phone. Like I'm both. I'm digital and paper. But the reason I like win by noon is, okay, especially with you guys, you're out with realtors often, right? You're having coffees or you're at events, whatever. Take notes. Don't leave it up to remembering. Like, I remember an odd amount of detail about people. Like, it's really weird how much stuff I remember about people, their addresses, and even I know that I can't leave it all up to what's in my head. So have your notebook there. That's why I love that. Because, hey, I had an appointment with Todd at noon on one side of the page with my calendar, and on the right side of the page in my notes, I'm writing down the important stuff that Todd told me that I can now use to hopefully be of value in the future to Todd, whether that's about a real estate transaction or just life in general. And so I think it's really important, whether we're sitting in front of our computer like I am right now, or we're out in the field, like, take the notes. And then of course the other part is now I got to go back and type this in so that way I can really actually utilize what I learned. But I think that's major. And I think so many people miss it. And the more people that miss these minor details, the more major things they're going to miss.
Yeah, I think that's so critical. So I was just scanning for questions. You guys got quiet on me. They still love your wealth chart. I think that's awesome. All right. So you've got a, group of 100 plus, top loan officers in the country. Any other thing that you think would be worth sharing with them before we kick them all off to go do their lead generation and call some new agents?
I mean, I think the reality is you guys are obviously in that place. You're not in the mortgage coach community if you're not, you don't see the value in education. You don't see the value in learning, understanding that your best partners are probably the same way. And so just constantly looking for ways to use those opportunities to build more rapport, build deeper relationships with those people, I think are huge. And the other thing is, a lot of folks on this call run their business significantly, I'm going to say, better than your agent partners. So become a teacher. Literally give to them. I can't tell you how many times there's so many agents out there that don't understand. I'm not talking about just go teach a class for the sake of CEs and getting people in the room. That's great too, but understand if you have a great system, you do something really well, and one of your partners doesn't, look for opportunities to share with them on how they can get better, because they will value that, especially if it's a one-on-one thing. I can tell you that right now, that goes a real long way.
All right. Someone is asking to tell you more about HomeBot. Why do you like it?
I like it to be totally frank with you, I like it because my consumers like it. I am not married to any one thing because I think it's cool. I'm married to it because it is functional and provides value in the eyes of the consumer. So what I know about it is gets high open rates. My clients interact with it. They open the same email multiple times. They play with the different scenarios. It brings me more opportunities to have excuses, to have conversations, to look at different options, especially on the LO side for refinance, et cetera. It looks nice. Don't get me wrong. I think maybe the valuable thing about HomeBot is the fact that it turns your home into, instead of just a home, it really makes it look like an asset statement, which is right in line with what you guys do with Mortgage Coach. So I'm a big fan of that HomeBot, but the real thing I like about HomeBot is that my consumers see value in it. And if they didn't, I would stop using it tomorrow. I'm not loyal to HomeBot, although HomeBot is great. If they didn't see value in it, I would turn it off.
I would say two things on it, and I'll throw up, I won't throw up. I will put up into the Mortgage Coach community. I'll run another how to create client engagement with HomeBot webinar in the next 2 weeks. Let me just check my travel schedule. But I just threw into Zoom, and it's also in the Facebook. Just WBN Lender for Win by Noon Lender waives the $200 activation fee. And then you use WBN Agent, that waives your real estate agent's $50 activation fee. So use those codes, and I'll keep teaching on. Our team this weekend alone got 10 requests from HomeBot users with regards to either updating a value or refinance rates, or they started looking for homes. Someone actually self-registered themselves as a buyer and said they're going to move in April of 2020. So they haven't reached out to their agent yet. Their agent's doesn't even know that they're thinking about moving, but guess what? They told our team that. So it's a pretty phenomenal tool, but just keep posted. Someone's asking me, it's in the chat of HomeBot there. Of Zoom there. It's just WBN for Win by Noon Lender is your code. So it should be in there. Hopefully you're finding it. Thanks, Kevin, for throwing it in there. So, all right, guys, there is a ton that we covered today. Here would be my highlights, and then Kevin, I'll let you sort of close it out. Number one is, if you're thinking about attending an event this year that's outside of the normal mortgage space, go to Next Level Agents Live, NLAlive2020.com. It's down there. I think it's a great way to connect. And if you're going to go, ping me, because I'd love to put together maybe a happy hour, a mastermind for any of the Mortgage Coach community who chooses to go, because I will be there. KevinandFred.com is where you can check out all of their other stuff that Kevin and his business partner, Fred, put out there. You can jump in. Will you let him into your Next Level Agents Facebook community? Yeah, absolutely. We allow lenders and whatnot in. We just ask that it's the same rules that we ask our agents, don't go around soliciting on every post and DMing people. We just kind of have a rules for engagement. It's probably 95% realtors, maybe a little bit more, but a handful of folks in lending and title and a few other areas that have joined us in the group. Yeah, don't be that jerk when someone asks a question, you jump in and say, I've got all your answers. I'm your lender, call me, right? That's kind of what he's saying. You guys do a good job of pushing those people out, making fun of them, just for the record. So be careful. And
I will mock you. Yes.
Through the iBuyer book in there. I'm just excited. Anytime I get the opportunity to run this call and have Kevin come on as a guest, I know he's going to add a ton of value. So I just want to say thanks. Anything else we should button this up with, Kevin?
No, I appreciate the opportunity, Todd, and for sure, we'd love to have you guys at NLA Live. Don't just come, but bring one or two of your great relationships. I guarantee you this: if you bring an agent, and they don't get value in those sessions, they don't have something they can take away. Number one, find new partners or check for a pulse. But it's effectively a money back guarantee. We're going to provide a ton of value. You can see that if you go to the sign up page, you can see some of the testimonials from last year's event. It's a great way to bond with your folks and really get some learning in for yourself. I'm just a big fan. Again, Todd shared the story of him and I kind of connecting at an event. So I'm a big believer in getting outside of your office's four walls and learning from other people and what's going on in the industry and seeing what the other folks are doing who I don't normally hang out with.
Awesome. Well, I want to say thank you again, my friend. So appreciate you. Appreciate all of you in the Mortgage Coach Mastermind, Productivity Mastermind community. On behalf of Win by Noon and Dave Savage and all the folks at Mortgage Coach, thank you all for being here. We'll see you next week.
Thanks, guys. We'll see you soon.